About a month ago, I put out a post on Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube asking what questions you had about the carnivore diet. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering those questions. I just released a part 1 version of this video where I answered a whole bunch of your questions already, but we had a whole bunch more to go through, and we are going to do that today. The very first question is, what do you do when you're losing hair on carnivore? And we had a few other people comment on that question saying, yes, that's happened to me as well. About 4 months in, 4.5 months in, I lost like 30% of my hair. I originally thought it was due to carnivore. I originally thought it was telogen effluvium, which can happen when a extreme diet change happens or extreme stress, surgery, things like that. I had switched over from like a low-fat, moderate protein, high-carb diet over to a no-carb diet, basically high-fat and moderate protein. So I think I, shocked my body, or at least that's what I thought was happening. But along with the hair loss was also fatigue. And typically when there's fatigue and hair loss, that's a thyroid issue. I went to my conventional doctor because that's kind of what I thought it was at first. And they tested my TSH and said, nope, TSH is normal, you're fine. Well, I wanted them to do a full thyroid panel and they were like, oh, if your TSH is normal, we can't, which is garbage. That's not true. I ended up suffering for about a year. My hair did grow back, but the fatigue would go on and off. And then about a year later, I had a full thyroid panel run and interpreted by a functional thyroid practitioner. And lo and behold, I had Hashimoto's hypothyroid. So if your hair is falling out, I would say the very first thing to do is to get a full thyroid panel. Unfortunately, once your hair is already falling out, there's not really much you can do. If you're watching this and you want to start carnivore and you're like, okay, I want to prevent my hair from falling out, there's a few things. Make sure you're eating enough food, make sure you're getting enough protein. And I would also say probably ease into carnivore because it can be a complete shock to your system if you're going from a normal diet to carnivore. That can be a lot. So those would be my tips. But if your hair is already falling out, you kind of just have to ride it out. It will grow back. The next question is, how long does it take your body to get acclimated to the carnivore way of life? And I think the answer is, it's a little bit different for everyone, but in general, a few weeks to a month. The very first month that you're on carnivore is going to be the most difficult because you're trying to figure out what you can eat. You may battle keto flu symptoms, and you may also have some oxalate dumping. So, first month is going to be the most difficult. Now, after that, your body is going to become a fat-burning machine. You're going to become fat adapted, which just means that you are able to use fat as fuel efficiently, and also that you can switch back and forth pretty quickly between fat metabolism and glucose metabolism. But yeah, I would say in general, 2 to 4 weeks is about how long it takes your body to get used to this way of eating. The next question is, what is your workout regimen? I keep hearing that exercise causes inflammation when you're eating carnivore. I don't know where you're hearing that from because that's not true at all. Carnivore is anti-inflammatory for the vast majority of people that are eating it. So no, you can work out just fine on carnivore. I think you will have like an adaptation phase where your body has to get used to using fat as a fuel as opposed to glucose. So you may not feel as strong in the gym. You may not be able to work out as hard. And I know for me, the first 6 weeks I was on carnivore, all I could do was walk because I had horrible diarrhea. I had horrible fatigue. And I thought it was mostly keto flu, but a lot of it was oxalate dumping after I'd made it past that initial couple of weeks of keto flu. So I didn't feel like going to the gym at all. But now, 2.5 years in, I lift very heavy and I do some Stairmaster, I do some cycling, and I do walking. I try to walk 3 to 5 days per week. That has been kind of a pipe dream this year so far because we've been traveling a lot and I haven't been able to do that, but that's kind of my goal. And then I like to strength train 3 to 4 days per week. The next question involves cholesterol. Will my high cholesterol level out on a carnivore diet? So to give you an answer for this question, we have to understand what we're looking at when we're looking at a standard lipid panel. So there's 4 things to look at that are the most important. First is total cholesterol. Then you've got triglycerides, LDL cholesterol, and HDL cholesterol. Typically on carnivore, what happens to your cholesterol is triglycerides go down, HDL goes up. And that's what you want to happen. LDL cholesterol, that can be different for every single person. And it's mostly related to your BMI and the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating. And on carnivore, you're not really eating a lot of carbs. So if you are overweight or normal weight, average weight, typically you're gonna see not much happen to your LDL. It can go down, it can stay the same. But if you're really lean and athletic and you start doing a carnivore diet, you could see your LDL cholesterol skyrocket. But at the same time, very low triglycerides, very high HDL. That is the lean mass hyperresponder triad. Dave Feldman and Nick Norwitz are studying that phenomenon as we speak, and trying to figure out if having sustained high levels of LDL cholesterol is actually bad. Research is ongoing, so we don't really know the answer to that. But what I will say is, on a carnivore diet, triglycerides tend to go down, HDL tends to go up. What I think is more important than cholesterol is your blood sugar levels. So what's your fasting glucose? What is your fasting insulin? Most doctors don't order that, but it's one of the most important blood tests you can get, and it's like a $14 test. Fasting insulin. And then I'd want to know, what is your A1C? Because those three numbers, along with your triglycerides and HDL, are going to give a lot of information about your overall metabolic health. So as far as targets to aim for, you want your triglycerides to be under 100. You want your HDL to be above 50. LDL, don't really have a target there. It's going to do what it's going to do, and that's just the way the body works. For A1C, I'm aiming for a 5.6 or less, but on carnivore, a 5.4 or less is what you're aiming for. You want your fasting glucose to be like 95 or less, ideally in the 80s, and you want that fasting insulin to be between a 2 and a 6, but if you're in the single digits, you're on the right track. The next question is a question about eating to satiety, or should you have a specific protein goal in mind, like tracking? So basically the question is, should I eat until I'm full, or should I track my food? And you're gonna get varying advice on this. I think that's, the whole question is you're confused, like what advice should I follow? And I think you just have to figure out what works best for you. As far as a minimum protein goal, the way that I calculate it is 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. I wanna weigh 130 pounds, so I aim for a minimum of 130 grams of protein per day. But that's not a hard and fast rule. I think if you're at least getting 100 grams of protein per day, you're in good shape. And if you enjoy tracking your food, go right ahead. If you are able to just eat until you are satiated and stop, great, do that. And that may change as you continue on carnivore, but you just have to figure out what works best for you. But yeah, I think minimum 100 grams of protein per day, or you could do some kind of calculation with like 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, or you could do like 0.6 grams, 0.8 grams, 1.2, 1.5. It really just kind of depends on what your goals are with the carnivore diet. The next question, as you lose weight, is it normal for your skin to itch at times? And I'm gonna say, yeah, I've heard that before. When I first think of that, think of just your body clearing out toxins. It could be oxalate crystals leaching out. It could just be your body adjusting to a new way of eating. But in general, yes, I have heard of that before, and I would say it's normal. I don't think most people get it, but I don't think it's like something that's super uncommon. One question I get all the time is about electrolytes. Do I need to drink electrolytes in the beginning of carnivore? Do I need to drink them once I've been on carnivore for a while? And every question in between. I think electrolytes are essential in the beginning of carnivore because they help to mitigate the very worst of your keto flu symptoms. The electrolyte brand that I use is Element, and I'd like to thank them for sponsoring today's video. Element is an electrolyte brand that has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. I've been using them since the beginning of carnivore, and I'm typically using their raw unflavored packets, but they just released an awesome flavor for the summer. It's their lemonade salt. It only has 1 gram of carbs per serving, and I think they're an excellent choice for the carnivore diet as well. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. So you can head to the link in the description. It's drinkelement.com/Jenny Mitich. That's DRINKLMNT.com/Jenny Mitich and get your free sample pack with any order today. Okay, the next question is about a person that has a hernia. Can I still get into ketosis if I'm eating smaller meals? And yes, the answer is yes. When I think about this, I'm thinking of people that have had like gastric bypass surgery, and they're not able to just eat like 1 meal a day because they don't have intact digestive systems. So for you with a hernia of any kind, yeah, just make sure, you're not injuring yourself and all that. You don't want to be doing that. And if smaller meals are going to get the job done for you, go right ahead. I would just say make sure you're getting enough food. And the only way to track if you're in nutritional ketosis is to measure. So you could use like a keto mojo meter or a lumen or pea strips are okay in the beginning, but then after that, they kind of lose their efficacy. So yeah, you can totally do smaller meals if you're dealing with a hernia. Okay, the next question is about basically how to do a fat fast. If you were to do a fat fast to help weight loss stalls, can you just do that with extra butter, or am I gonna have to chew suet for 24 to 48 hours? And then she says barf, which was hilarious. Any advice for weight loss stalls? So sure, you just pick whatever fat you want. It doesn't have to be something that you don't like. Butter is a very easy way to do a fat fast just because it's so easy to eat. I like to keep it in the freezer and then just, take bites when needed. Weight loss stalls are tricky. I have an entire video coming out in a few weeks on a bunch of tips to get over weight loss stalls because there's a lot of different things you need to dial in. So make sure to stay tuned for that video. But yeah, for fat fasts, just use whatever fat you like best. The next question is about constipation. This person has been doing carnivore and is really, really constipated. Okay, my top advice for anybody with constipation is increase the fat content. If you really want to get things going fast, you could add hot rendered fats. You could eat the fat after cooking a pound of ground beef or things like that. That'll get things moving really quick. Another thing is MCT oil. I realize that that's not really carnivore, but if you just take a teaspoon of MCT, your bowels will start moving very quickly. Sometimes it just takes your body time to get used to this way of eating. And you did mention that you had been eating dairy, and that can back you up. So that's a thing. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when you're on carnivore, you're just not creating as much fecal volume because you're not consuming plants. Fiber, which is only in plants, just kind of bulks up your fecal volume and you poop a lot more. On carnivore, it's not uncommon to only poop once a day or once every couple of days and not feel constipated. But from your question, I'm assuming that you're in discomfort. So I would just say increase the fat. That is a really easy way to get things moving again. The next question is from a person that would like to go on carnivore but is still breastfeeding. Here's the thing with that. I have zero experience with that. I was not carnivore until my boys were a year old, and also with breastfeeding, I had a really hard time. I had very low supply the entire time, and I stopped after about 3 months. Now, I will say that meat is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. So for you, because you don't want to have an impact in your supply, I would say ease into it. Make sure you're getting enough food, but do, meat, fruit, and vegetables for a time, and then just start slowly reducing the carbs and just pay attention to what happens to your milk supply. If you notice it's starting to go down, add a few more carbs back in. I think it's highly individualized for each person. And, I think a lot of people that are carnivore throughout their pregnancy and then breastfeed, they have a lot of success with breastfeeding. It seems to work out really well for them. But for a person that wants to transition on to carnivore from a previous way of eating while they're currently breastfeeding, that can be touch and go. So I would just say take it slow and just keep an eye on that supply and go from there. The next question has 2 parts. The first is about how much fat should this person eat, and then how much protein, and if it's okay to add some protein powder. So typically when you're starting carnivore, you just want to do like a 1-to-1 fat to protein, and that'll give you about a 70% fat to 30% protein macro breakdown. Basically, each gram of protein has 4 calories. Each gram of fat has 9 calories, so double the calories. So if you're eating 100 grams of protein and 100 grams of fat, that would be 70% fat to 30% protein when you break it down calorically. So I would say just, however much protein you're eating in grams, try to aim for an equal amount in fat. And then from there, play around with the macros once you've gotten used to the diet. If you want to build a lot of muscle, you may want to up the protein and lower the fat a little bit. And there's lots of reasons why you would want to up the fat and lower the protein. The macro split that you settle on depends a lot on your goals. So that's just something you'll need to figure out for yourself. But in general, I think equal amounts of fat and protein in grams is a great place to start. As far as protein powder, sure, you can use protein powder. Just make sure that you are reading the ingredients label. I personally prefer to get all of my protein from meat as much as possible because it is in its actual form. It has to be digested, and just all of the nutrients are bioavailable. When you have a protein powder, it's pulverized and it kind of hits your bloodstream really quick. It can raise blood glucose levels. And it's just not as ideal as eating a piece of meat. But if you're having a hard time getting in all of your protein, then sure, yeah, protein powder is fine. Just read the ingredients labels. The next question wasn't really a question, it was more of just a comment. For me, carnivore was the worst diet ever. My cholesterol went through the roof, I was really constipated, I had hard stools no matter how much water I drank and how much butter. It's not for everyone. So yeah, I don't think carnivore is for everyone. I would be really interested to see what you meant about your cholesterol going through the roof, because typically what happens is the triglycerides go down, HDL goes up. LDL cholesterol can do a bunch of different things, but if you just meant that your total and your LDL went up, but your trigs and your HDL were good, then that's actually a good thing. As far as the constipation, sure, yeah, it can be a lot. I would say the hot rendered fat, we just talked about this a second ago, hot rendered fat's really helpful, MCT oil, but that all tends to even out within the first month. But yeah, it can be difficult for sure. And I am not one of those carnivore creators that thinks that everybody should be on carnivore. I think you need to figure out what works best for you. And if you had a hard time, then you had a hard time. That is valid, and maybe it's just not for you. The next question is, I've been on carnivore for 3 weeks. I am obese. I already have been getting people noticing that I'm losing weight. But the question is, if I eat less and less, will I still lose weight? So you want to make sure you're eating enough food. The thing about carnivore is why you're losing weight in the beginning is typically like water weight. You're not eating carbs anymore, so a lot of that is water weight and it's coming off. But then that'll start to slow down a bit. But if you are obese, you have weight to lose and that fat will continue to come off. The problem with eating less on any diet is you risk not getting the amount of nutrients that you need, and you risk putting your body into starvation mode, which means that it'll just hold on to every ounce of fat it has because it thinks it's dying. You know, you want to make sure you're getting adequate nutrition. So no, I would not recommend eating less and less. I need you to eat enough food to where you are satiated, to where you're not hungry and you feel like, oh, I got to get some of this sweet stuff to you know, satisfy my hunger or my cravings. You want to make sure that you're full, and your body will get used to this diet after about a month, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit less, but in general, that weight will continue to come off. The next question, do you ever feel weak when you work out? I've been carnivore for almost a year, and I also have Hashimoto's, and anytime I go to the gym, I feel wiped out. So yeah, you know, I also have Hashimoto's, and before I got on my thyroid meds, yeah, I'd get wiped out at the gym. I'm currently now on T3 and a T4. The T4 is an NP thyroid, so a natural desiccated pork thyroid. And actually the T4 has been really helpful. Just the T3 on its own was okay, but I needed some T4 added in. So we're starting to dial all of that in. I have noticed that I've been feeling a little bit better at the gym. So I would say for that, you probably would need to look more at the thyroid end of things. But food-wise, I feel my best when I keep it strict carnivore. And when I add in carbs, it doesn't really make much of a difference athletically, I will say, at the gym. So yeah, that's just been my experience. The next question is from Chris, 65-year-old male, cannot exercise due to a disability. Can I still lose weight on the carnivore diet without exercising? Kind of hit a weight loss stall. Been on it since February of 2025. So yeah, you can definitely still lose weight on carnivore. Since you can't really exercise, I would say you need to work a little bit on your macros. So right now you're eating 2,000 calories, macro split of maybe 70-30 per day, fat to protein. I would say maybe up the protein and lower the fat and see what happens. Try that for 3 weeks. See if that scale starts moving again. I would also challenge you to maybe try to do some kind of exercise that you can do. If you can't really do much walking or running or anything like that, can you do weights like this? Sitting in a chair. Are you able, if it's the arms that are an issue, would you be able to like do something with your legs while sitting? You know, is there some way that you can get some movement going? I would also work on stress and sleep, because if those are not dialed in, it's going to be very hard to lose weight. And my final suggestion is, if you're still including dairy in your version of the carnivore diet, try cutting that out for about a month, because that is like one of the #1 reasons why people aren't losing weight on carnivore. So hopefully some of those tips help. And I also have a weight loss stall video that's going to be coming out in a few weeks, so be sure to stay tuned for that. This next question is about a person that did carnivore, saw a lot of weight loss initially, and then figured out that they were eating too much fat. So they then dropped some of the fat, began losing weight again, but they do not have a gallbladder and they're having some digestive issues. So should they take oxbile? I think it can be effective for some people. Some people have a lot of success with it. Some people don't have any success with it at all. I would say if you've already lowered the fat significantly, there's not really much movement you can do there, but you could also just lower the fat a little bit or just up the protein. Typically, if you don't have a gallbladder, that doesn't mean that you're not producing bile. You still have bile. You just don't have a big reserve of it that's stored in that gallbladder. So your body just needs time to ramp up bile production. If you just started carnivore, that was only like 3 months ago. So your body just needs some more time to get adjusted. So sure, try the oxbile, see if it's effective, and then go from there. All right, next question is about water retention on carnivore. A person is not eating any carbs and is seeing some water retention and swelling in the ankles and feet. So I would say, is this person drinking enough water? And is this person drinking or using too many electrolytes? That would be a question that can cause water retention in some people. I would also say, is this person sedentary? Or is this person moving around a lot? Because you kind of got to get that water moving. Finally, I would say, has this person ever had any history of, water retention? Is there an underlying issue that could be causing this? Because carnivore isn't a magic bullet for everything. You can't just go carnivore and all of a sudden you're healed of everything. Sometimes it reveals some underlying root cause issues that need to be addressed. So that's everything that I can think of related to water retention. The next question is, I am a 75-year-old male. I've been doing carnivore for 15 months. My blood work is perfect. Can I do this forever? And I will say that, yeah, there's a lot of long-term carnivores out there that are very, very healthy that have been doing it for a very long time. So some examples, Dr. Robert Kiltz has been doing it for 15 years. He's 70. He's like the epitome of health, running around, traveling the world, exercising. I hope to have half of his energy, when I'm half his age as I am now. Dr. Lisa Wiedemann has been on carnivore for 16 years. She's 60. And she's very healthy. Kelly Hogan, I think, has been on it for 16 years. Dr. Sean Baker's been on it since, I think, 2015 or 16. Lots of long-term carnivores out there that are, very healthy and having a lot of success with it. So yeah, if you're doing well, your blood work is good, you're feeling healthy, you have enough energy, then sure, keep doing what you're doing because that's awesome. The next question is about skin. Your skin looks amazing. You have that healthy glow. Is that all from the carnivore diet or has it always been that way? So for me, I suffered from some pretty severe acne when I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And no, my skin hasn't always been good. I've been slightly obsessed with skincare though since I was 13. So I do a lot for my skin. Sure, carnivore definitely helped with the puffiness and inflammation, but I also do a lot. Probably 3 days ago, I got a hydrofacial. I do chemical peels. I have gotten Botox in the past. I do need to get that touched up because I can move my face. I do a lot of stuff with skin that is not related to carnivore. I have an entire video on this topic that I will link in the description. Yeah, I think carnivore helps, but you really also have to pay attention to it. There's a lot that goes into having healthy skin. The next question is about supplementing on a carnivore diet. I haven't seen any content about it. What's the deal with supplementing? So I have an entire video about supplementation on carnivore that I will link in the description and right up here. People supplement for lots of different reasons. And I get a lot of comments here on YouTube that are like, why are you supplementing on carnivore? It's supposed to be the perfect diet, blah. People supplement for lots of reasons. And I think I'm getting all the vitamins and minerals I need on carnivore as far as like the nutrition side of things. But for example, I have an MTRR gene mutation, so it doesn't matter how much red meat I consume. My B12 and my folate is always kind of like low normal when it should be really high, like high normal functional medicine range. I'm eating a ton of red meat, but my body does not break down meat the the way it should. It doesn't break down all of that stuff into the B vitamins that my body needs to do other things. So I have to take a methylated B complex for the rest of my life. And about 40% of the population has a gene mutation similar to this, MTHFR, MTRR, there's 3 others where you need to take a methylated B complex. Doesn't matter what I eat. I could eat any diet, I'm still gonna need to do that. So that's one thing. I also have Hashimoto's hypothyroid, so I have to take certain supplements for that. I take selenium, zinc, vitamin C. I'm taking iodine, Alugol's iodine, every once in a while. I haven't really noticed much of a difference with the iodine. But yeah, people take supplements for lots of different reasons. And I think you can take supplements if you're on a carnivore diet. Just do what works best for you. But also check out that video that I made about supplements because I go into details about what to look for in a high quality supplement and things like that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and maybe hitting that subscribe button. I have a ton of carnivore content coming your way. I'd also like to let you know that my book, Complete Carnivore, is now available for pre-order. This book has been a labor of love. It's a complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet along with 80+ carnivore recipes. I've envisioned it as like the encyclopedia of the carnivore diet. So if you would like to take your support a bit further, pre-ordering this book is the best way you can do so. I'll put links in the description. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm very receptive, as you can see, to my viewer questions. I really want to help you in your carnivore journey. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.